Good evening, this is the One-Eyed Cat, and I am here to go over something that I wanted to make a video on for a while now. I'm going to try to do it in multiple segments, but here's basically the premise of this video. You're playing Baldur's Gate, but you're going to use the origin character as your base character. This means that your origin character is going to do most of the dialogue stuff. That's actually desirable. The game still tends to stick your actual character into the dialogue in places. So like even if you like have someone else in your party that you want to like handle the dialogue check, it doesn't really matter because sometimes the game will actually like drag it over to your character anyway and use your character's stats for the interaction. So in my opinion, I'm eating, sorry. In my opinion, here's what you should do. You can adjust what you're going to do in terms of your character to the whole issue with like actually having a dialogue with people. You can adjust your character to be really good at social interactions. This is not a requirement, it's a desire. You can just bumble through the game, and there are some dialogue checks that it doesn't even matter if you succeed or not because you're going to have a fight anyway. But specifically, it's for people that want to actually do most of the dialogue with their origin character. So I'm going to go through them briefly, one at a time. So Astarion would be first. You don't get to choose much about him. You do get to choose his cantrips and other stuff, but here's mainly what I think you should be working on. Now he does get a deception thing. I'm going to say this one time, but it applies to basically all of the characters. You need to first decide what type of dialogue checks you want to have. In the sense that, do you want persuasion, which is sort of the nice way of getting people to do things? Do you want deception, which is sort of middle of the road, like sort of lying to people to get them to do things? Or do you want intimidation, which can sometimes actually be taken as like evil in a way? Sort of, not really, but sort of. That's your first thing you need to decide, usually, is what do I want to do in terms of how do I actually want to have these interactions. Now, notice that Astarion also already gets deception. That's actually good. That's part of his background. So, for each of these origin characters that I'm going to go through, it depends on their class, so I'll explain to you. So, starting with Astarion, Rogue. Rogue is already really good at doing a lot of things, but the other thing that's interesting about Rogue is that all you really need in theory is dexterity and possibly constitution, right? Like at least 14 constitution because you don't want to easily be poisoned, but it doesn't really matter. We're not really casting any concentration spells, even if we were to go with one of the subclasses, which is Arcane Trickster. However, you want a lot of dexterity, so I'm going to give it 16 at this point. I don't like starting off with negative numbers, so I'm going to give 16. Now, wisdom, I'm going to always put at 10 because I hate failing perception checks, and strength I'm always going to put at 10 because I don't like, basically not being able to carry much of anything around in my backpack in terms of looting stuff and like going to sell it. So these, I'm only going to explain that part once in terms of why I put wisdom and strength that way. Now, specifically for Astarion, there is the subclass of Swashbuckler Rogue, which actually would benefit from having a lot of charisma. So you can do, let me think, actually, you can do this. This is perfectly viable as a rogue. I'm not saying that this is the best way, but it is totally doable. Now then what you would do, if you really want to have a lot of like face character stuff, in terms of being good at stuff, again, it depends on how you want to do things. I prefer persuasion, so I would go like this. And then, of course, my goal with a rogue is what? Is stealth and sleight of hand. So I'm going to take sleight of hand and stealth. Maybe I could have taken a little bit more. Perhaps 5 plus 5 persuasion is what you want. So you can do this. You can do like the second point in stealth, or you can do the second point in persuasion. I prefer persuasion only because there's really not a lot of mandatory stealth checks in this game. If you want to play a rogue where you're like pickpocketing a lot, you go with stealth. And then from there, everything else is like, what do you want to do? You just basically pick what you want. I can choose Intimidation if I think it's going to be an easier check, but I don't have to. What I might want to do is something like this. That's just my opinion. But it depends on what you're going to do with your rogue. Usually I'm going to want my rogue to be pretty good with combat, so this would probably be a good way to do it. There's many ways to do it, but this is one example. Alright, so then Lae'zel. How can we configure Lae'zel, out of the gate to be good with perception checks? I'm going to say right now that keep in mind, like, this is the origin page, like we're picking our people. You can't really change your class on this page that I know of. So you might need to, in some ways, set this up so that, like, you can go to Withers. There's not necessarily a ton of, like, super important checks at the beginning of the game. So here's what I would do. I want her to be good with combat, but I want her to have a little bit of charisma. That's just my opinion. She already has intimidation proficiency. I can't really pick any other ones, so I'm going to probably have to go at least 14. Strength is probably going to be the 16 stat, simply because that's going to be the mainstay of what we do. Canonically, in terms of her story, she is mainly a strength-based character in the sense that she wields a great sword, great weapons. So this is probably how you'd want to do it, at least minimally. Right? So this is the minimum way I would set her up. Constitution 14 is decent. Wisdom 10 at least for perception checks. Strength 16. Can you go 17? Yeah, technically you can, but I don't prefer to have negative numbers at the beginning, unless, and I have to say this with Lae'zel, unless you're going to go as an Eldritch Knight and configure yourself as like an Eldritch Knight thrower, in which case you would want to go 17. That's because Tavern Brawler is going to give you the chance at your first feat to go and add 1 to strength. But let's say you're not. At this point, the rest of the points, you could put them in charisma, but that would max you out. If I want, like, my personal opinion with Lae'zel is I want her to be able to hit stuff. So this might be one way to do it. I don't like it, though. I would probably end up going something like... I'm going to do, like, because I like Eldritch Knight Tavern Brawlers, I'm going to actually do something like... Nah, it just doesn't work out. So what's the two main things a fighter need is strength and constitution. I'm going to get Tavern Brawler feat, so I'm already going to do that. I might just go ahead and do that. Yeah, it's not going to work out very well, so I might do something like this. And just because I need to throw some points at something random, maybe like... See, that's the difficult thing. Strength is the only thing that benefits from it having like a negative number in here. Everything else doesn't. So we're sort of limited. If I go like this, I can have high charisma if I want to just succeed at checks, because I hate failing dialogue checks. But I don't think that's necessarily the most ideal way to play this character, and I would probably be resetting her, or what is it called? Reclassifying her at my first opportunity into Swords Bard. I'm going to show you in a game save file how to do that. Gale. He comes as a wizard. You can't do anything about that. Whatever you choose for spells and cantrips, I don't care. But, like, he has no dialogue at all. No dialogue skills. So we're going to have to do something that I don't like. If I want to just start the game and my goal is just to get to Withers as soon as I can, I could do something like this. It's rather ugly though, honestly. I mean, look at it. It's pretty bad. It's already pretty bad, yeah. So I could do this. What that would do is mean I'm going to be depending almost entirely on spells. Now, notice quarterstaff are strength-based. They're strength-based weapons, but let's say I want to have plenty of options for range and for for, you know, surviving the first 2 levels until I get to Withers. Here is one way you can do this. What else would I do? Maybe... So I could do something like this. Bone Chill is because it gives people disadvantage and it can prevent them from healing. And then what I'd want to do, because I'm a wizard and I'm squishy, I'd probably want to do something like this. Maybe like something like that. Maybe it doesn't really matter. You can play it any other way. I could survive the game at the beginning that way. I could survive it. And I get a persuasion. I don't know how in the world that wizards get that, but whatever. So that's actually not too bad. 14, but with a point in persuasion, that's a +4. That's not too bad. That's going to keep me alive, right? And then what would I do for spells? Probably, like, I hate doing this, but, like... it's not fun at level 1. But anyway, so that's one of the ways that you could, in theory, and I would move that point later. But this is one way that you could survive just for the time being. Because, honestly, the way to do it at this point would be as soon as you get to Withers, reclassify him as a sorcerer, because that will give you, that will be like, you'll already be putting stuff in charisma, and you won't need to put stuff in intelligence, so you can move your stats around and it'll be a little bit better. Shadowheart. Now this one is tough. Really it is. Did you know that a lore bard can actually function really well as a healer? Yes, it can. There's other options too, like there's also like druids and clerics obviously are good healers, but my point is you'd want charisma if you want to do good with charisma checks, like in dialogue. So like let's see here. Obviously, high elf cantrip. That's actually pretty good. I almost might take Bone Chill just because I like unbuffing Ketheric Thorn. But anyway, so let's see, cantrips, spells. So what I'd probably do, you don't really have spells yet, so it's sort of annoying. Or at least it's going to give you those spells and you can't choose them. But anyway, I don't like Trickery Domain, but whatever. We're just starting out the game. If we're starting out the game, she has no charisma skill points. So what I would do, this is really going to suck. I would do a pattern where I take first level, just the first level would be a cleric, and then when I get Withers, I can reclass into lore bard and keep the first level if I want. It's not necessarily the best way to do it, but here's the reason why. If I do this, usually she has a melee weapon, so I'm going to put strength and con as her main skills. I don't like negative dexterity. From here, if I want, see, like other builds will use just the first level of cleric to grant, like if I'm going to switch over to Tempest Cleric, it would grant some of those bonuses, those bonus spells and stuff for like responding to when you're damaged. You can like shock them back or like hit them with thunder damage. So we don't technically have to have wisdom at the beginning of the game. Like when I go into the game, I'm gonna want to heal, that's true. But when I get level 2, I can like immediately go to Lore Bard if I have my stats set up right. So in theory, what I could do, and I know this is an ugly way to do it, so please forgive me. This is not going to be fun. You could technically do this. It's not the best. I'm going to say that right now. But what you're going to need at the beginning of the game is strength, so you hit your enemies. You can heal your friendlies, but you're going to need charisma to get through dialogues. My plan would be to go, like, as soon as I get into the game, level 2 would be Lore Bard, so I can have, like, healing spells that are based on the Bard. But having Cleric as level 1 will give me medium armor proficiency. And then from here, you can actually, believe it or not, you can take a Persuasion point. So that would actually be helpful at the beginning of the game. But then you'd have to also, like I would need that, right? But you would also need to then like reclass at some point. I'll show you how a full healer build can work for a Lore Bard, and you'll like it. You'll probably like it. Will is one of the easiest to use as an origin character if you want to have a face character. It's actually almost perfect. because you can't choose this. So I get that, right? So you're gonna have to use some, like, you know, spells and stuff, but to stay protected. We're gonna take Eldritch Blast, Bone Chill because I like debuffing some enemies, certain ones. I don't have good armor, so I'm probably gonna want to do something like this at least, to take Armor of Agathis. And then from there, I might take Hellish Rebuke because that's just another way to damage people who attack me. Doing more damage can be a way of doing more defense. So then what I would do is I don't even have to do much of any adjusting to him already, because he's already like an excellent class to be a face character, because Warlock uses Charisma. Let me see here. Wisdom. So then he would be mainly Dexterity. At the beginning, I'm not going to want to do a lot of concentration spells, so 14 con is fine. If I stay with Warlock, I can just take Warcaster and then bump up my Charisma the next 2 times. So then now, since we're a Charisma character, we can choose things that we want. I think lore-wise, Will would be more of a persuasion kind of person instead of being a jerk. But then the difficult thing is, like, then I can only use these on things I already have sub points for. I might not be able to do that, but it's still, +3 isn't too bad. Just notice that, like, I can't really choose the things I want. So let's see, persuasion. This is sort of sucky. Oh, it lets me do that. That's interesting. Never mind. And maybe perception. Well, crap. So, not perception. I don't know if I would take deception or intimidation. Sometimes I do. What would I like for him, though? That's pretty interesting. Maybe I'll do deception just so I have 2 face skills, but it's not really required. So Will's already perfect. Karlach is an interesting one. This actually works really well. What I usually do is I usually configure her as a Barbarian Berserker Thrower build. It's an amazing build. You do like 20 damage, even at like level 2 and 3, you're doing like 20 damage every time you hit someone with your returning pike. But you can pick up spears and pikes in the game, or javelins rather, spears and javelins, and use those, and you're hitting people with like 20 damage. So she doesn't have any phase skills, that's fine. But what you can do is, if you're going that direction like I do, in terms of that specific build, almost everything you do is going to be strength, and you don't need dexterity. You can throw things at people and you don't need the dexterity to do it. Constitution 14 is at least good enough. And then you can totally put 16 charisma on her if you want. That's if you really want to do great on charisma checks. However, notice that they already have intimidation. I've actually been playing a playthrough where I run around and use intimidation on everyone, to basically yell at everyone. I might do this instead. See, the intimidation +4 is actually pretty good. It's going to be good enough. But I run around and like yell at people with intimidation, and I love it. It's hilarious, like, to see the different dialogue stuff that you get when you yell at certain people. Like, I yelled at Kaga, so like straight up just yelled at her. Now, if you're doing a custom character, you can pick whatever you want in here. I would recommend, though, going with a bard. Bards are the best face characters. They're not the only one. There are also, you can do sorcerer pretty good, paladin, Warlock, like I said, with Will. Anything that's charisma based is already going to have an advantage in terms of not having to screw around and put like your ability scores all over the place and like weaken your character. But I would recommend, if you want specifically to do a custom character that's good with talking to people, you're going to want a bard. Now, do not take, if you're doing anything in a difficulty that's not the basic difficulty, do not choose friends, because they will figure out that you've basically tricked them using magical spells, and then you'll instigate a fight if you don't immediately just run away from every conversation you have. I think this is a better idea. Take Vicious Mockery, possibly Dancing Lights so you can reveal hidden enemies, Minor Illusion, whatever you want to do, it doesn't matter. Then as a healing bard, if that's what you wanted to do, but you don't have to. You already get 2 healing spells. That's actually the bulk of all your healing but you don't have to do that. If I want to be like a talky character, I'll actually usually do something like this, even though I already took dancing lights. But anyway, I'll usually do something like this, or maybe like this. Starting instrument doesn't matter. If I'm playing the Dark Urge, I'm almost always going to choose violin because I just think it fits. And then you would want to probably do something along the lines of Guild Artisan, because you get Persuasion. Then you'd go over here. The way to configure a bard is usually this way. Now here's the other thing you can do with a bard. I'm not going to say you have to do it this way, but this is what I recommend. I prefer that my character always has the ability to pick locks. So I'm almost always picking sleight of hand because I just want to have it. Because that way I'm not switching over to Asterion all the time. That means I don't have to have Asterion in my party all the time. But I can still have him in my party if I want to. Perception, because I want to be able to see things. I usually take two-phase skills, so Persuasion is the first and then maybe Deception is the second. And that's basically how I configure my bards. That's how it is. Doesn't matter what race, you can pick whatever you want. I will say really briefly, I'm going to be honest, this is absolutely my favorite way to play the Dark Urge. It is absolutely cute. Not as cute as my wife, but definitely cute. And then, of course, Dark Urge. Now, let me talk to you about that one. This is the last one we have to go over. I prefer blue because lightning breath and lightning. There's other ways to do it. You can also do, is it silver? There's silver, right? This is if you're going to turn yourself into basically, if you're going to basically turn yourself into a sorcerer. Usually people play the Dark Urge as a sorcerer. And you get Haunted One, Medicine, and Intimidation. Intimidation is one of those ones that you're going to want to try to use as much as you can, only so that you like try to get like, what are those things? Inspiration points. As for a sorcerer, if you want to build a sorcerer, usually how it goes is something like this. Now you're going to want to max out Charisma, because that's basically how hard your spells hit and how confidently you can hit them, how likely you are to hit them. And then usually you don't have concentration spells, but you can go with Constitution 16. Dexterity is only to increase your armor class, or maybe like sometimes if you use the bow and arrow, but I don't use it very often because like I'm using my spells. I'm a sorcerer. I have cantrips for that. So here's the cantrips I prefer if I'm doing this. I usually go by the builds that people use in terms of Stormfrost Sage or whatever else they want to call it. I always get the cold and electrical spells first. Now in the game, I could use this to debuff enemies, and then here maybe I can use Firebolt to light things on fire, but for the most part I don't need much. Now, your cantrips will actually do well enough that you don't necessarily need spells. My thing is, if I'm starting out the game like this, I'm going to have no armor. It's not going to give me armor. So what am I supposed to do? I would actually prefer to have mage armor, maybe not shield at first, but at least mage armor, so I can cast that on myself in the game. And then in this game, if you're starting out, one of the best spells you can have in terms of starting out, it's a toss-up between Chromatic Orb and Missile, Magic Missile. Magic Missile is nice because it always hits. Chromatic Orb is nice because the thunder damage is quite nice, but you can choose the other damage. It's really difficult to fit all the spells into just two. Honestly, I'd be tempted to actually start out this way, but there's other things you can do and other reasons why. Anyway, so Storm Sorcery, yeah, usually I'd pick Storm Sorcery, but you can also do Draconic Bloodline. It's up to you, because if you do Draconic Bloodline, one of the advantages you have is you get the spell that goes with it. Where's the cold one? Yeah, wait. Oh, sweet, I didn't notice that before. Alright, so watch this. See the spell that it gives you? You get a spell for your ancestry. I would take Witch Bolt. Because, like, this one, okay, you give me Armor of Agathis, but it only works once. Once an enemy hits you, it gives them 5 cold damage, but then it doesn't do anything. Look at the spells that come with it. Sometimes that's the best way to do it. I usually am going to choose Lightning because Witch Bolt is a decent spell. Okay. and then you already got the ability scores, right? Alright, so thank you for watching this. What I basically did is I went through all of the origin characters and how to make them better out of the gate with charisma checks. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish this video, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how I would actually configure them, starting through some of the basic beginning levels if I want to emphasize the dialogue options on any of these characters. So that's going to be a different video. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good day.